You're inside the press box. Christian FM Sports presents Inside the Press Box, where we discuss all sports from our favorite high school team to college and pro. Here's your hosts, Paul Tipton and Gary Paris.
How about them Indians winning a playoff game in round one against Lake Nona? Hey, Vero Nation, Paul Tipton along with Gary Paris inside the press box. Thanks for joining us as we look forward to our region semifinal match against Palm Beach Central. We'll talk about the Broncos in just a little bit. GP, last Friday night, Vero Beach hosting round one of the playoffs. Lake Nona, two district champs, 4-seed Vero, 5th seed Lake Nona coming in. Expected to be a tight, hard-fought ball game. But tell you what, Vero Beach in that first half came out on fire.
Well, you never know what you're going to get when you're ranked 4 and 5 playing each other. They were 7-3. We were 6-3. We finished 4th. They finished 5th in the region. And so we opened up with them. So we knew they were a good team. Mm-hmm. You know, you just don't know how well they're going to play and how well your guys are going to, when you match up two teams that are just separated by a few points in the ranking.
Yeah, you're right. And especially coming in with a defense like Lake Nona. I mean, looking at the stats on them, I mean, you're thinking, wow, man, they got 20 takeaways. They got 35 sacks. Man, that defensive line looks scary.
And they were at times. But Vero Beach was able to come out. And I tell you, Paul, the most impressive thing was that drive we had, our first drive, I believe, was 8 minutes and something.
Yeah, it took up quite a bit. It was 7 plays and 75 yards. And then Jannard Young capped it off with a 20-yard run to make it 6-0. I mean, yeah, that was an impressive drive to start things off.
Yeah, and anytime you can eat up that much clock, that is your opponent then has that much less time in the game. But Vero did well the first half, 21-0. Mm-hmm. They threw the ball well. They ran the ball well. The quarterback stood in the pocket well and was able to throw the ball downfield. And the first half was Vero commanded. We should have had another touchdown that got called back because of penalties. Vero had the only thing that I could say about this in the first half and the second half, we'll talk about in a minute here, a second. But the penalties, excuse me, the penalties Vero Beach has had the last few games.
Yeah.
This time of the year, you would not think that you would be having that many penalties. And a lot of those penalties there in that first half were costly.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, I mean, you know, some of them that we saw were legit calls. You know, some of them we didn't see, we weren't sure. So I'm not going to try to say, oh, they weren't the right calls. But, you know, there was a couple of them, you know, whenever you see a holding call in particular, Gary, unless it's like really, really obvious, you always wonder, like, was that really a holding call or did you just think you saw holding?
Yeah, I agree with you. There was a couple that we were right in front of us and I didn't agree with, and then there was one or two that I did agree with that I saw. I mean, it wasn't like we went out and we had 50 penalties or anything like that. We just had some costly penalties that hurt us, especially in the second half. And we had, in that first half, we had a touchdown called back.
Two of them.
Yeah,
right there near the end of the first half, we had actually I think 3 because we had 3 shots at it and each one of them got called back on a penalty and it just didn't work. Now, one of them we saw for sure. We had an ineligible receiver downfield. One of the linemen, I mean, he was downfield. He was definitely downfield. There's no doubt about it. But some of the other ones, you just kind of go, I'm not sure I saw the same thing that you saw, but, you know, you're closer down the field. I'll give it to you. Be interesting, you know, when we have a chance to talk to Coach Jankowski, get his thoughts on it. I'm sure he probably has a much better perspective on it. But good thing, Gary, that we did score that 21 in the first half because the second half was a different story.
It was a different story. The final was 21-7.
Yeah.
They got 7 points the second half. And I'll tell you what, Coach Audrey, the head coach of Lake Nona, did a good job. His staff did a really, really good job the second half.
Yeah.
to hold us, to minimize, and then they put a lot more pressure on the quarterback. They weren't going to let the legs of the quarterback beat us, and they weren't going to have the big plays that they had in the first half. One of the things that we lost E.J. White to a pulled muscle and or a little strain in the leg, I believe, was one of his problems. But we'll see what it's like next week. But this week, rather, with him not in the game, then that puts a lot of pressure on the inside guys to make your plays for you.
Yeah.
And then that means your quarterback's got to be able to read the coverages, and they put a lot of pressure. There were times that he had to throw the ball to a short receiver when if he could have waited, he could have had a little more time. He had a medium to a long receiver open on his routes. But he did a good job. I mean, to be a freshman, but they knew that. They knew going in, they were going to put pressure, try to get him. They spied on him the second half. They put pressure, they blitzed, they came at him with stunts, and it was a different half.
It definitely was. But you know what, Gary, I want to tip my cap to our defense because, obviously in the first half pitched a shutout, but in the second half, especially when your offense, and I don't want to say they were struggling, but, because Vero Beach, first drive in the second half, they had 6 plays and before they punted. So, I mean, it wasn't like it was just total 3 and out. The second possession, it was a 3 and out. But, Vero Beach was able to move the ball. It's just the defense for Lake Nona was able to put stops in key moments. But same thing happened with Vero.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things, too, Paul, you and I noticed, and we've talked about this, is that when you're playing a lot of players both ways.
Yeah.
And you're running, you're out there on the field 8 minutes, or you're out there on a 5-minute drive, and then you score, or you got a punt, or you lose on downs, and then there's several players then flip over and they play defense.
Yeah. It really kind of changes your perspective on time of possession, doesn't it? Because if you're thinking like, hey, man, if our offense could just put, a lot of first downs together, eat up some clock or whatever, and then they win the time of possession battle. That doesn't work for you if you're playing both sides of the ball, No,
I'm going to be honest with you. We've always praised our guys for being in good shape.
Yeah.
But the problem is when you play one game in 3 weeks,
yeah,
what kind of condition are you going to be in?
True.
You don't have that game speed mentality yet because you're when you're in a game, you give it all you got.
Right.
And there were times out there we saw they took guys out, especially on the defensive side in the second half, and you saw the difference of some of the ball players that when you take out your starters and you go to your second and third guys to rotate people in, not that they weren't given a good job, but this is still a good team we're playing.
Yeah.
They're going to run the ball. They're going to throw the ball. They're going to do. They went from 50 yards in the first half, and the total they ended up with was 172. So you can imagine that they got 122 yards of offense in the second half. It doesn't seem like a lot, but when you held them to 50 in the first half, then you over double you in the second half. So and again, a lot of to do with that was just playing guys both ways.
Yeah, I agree. I think, when you hadn't had a chance to get out there and run through game speed, then yeah, I think it could definitely affect all players, especially those that are running both ways. And we saw that a little bit on Friday night. But hey, guess what? We got another game coming up this week that we're going to talk about here in just a second. But I definitely want to just put a cap on this, Gary, by saying, you know what? Good teams find a way to make sure that they win. And yeah, we only scored 21 points. And yes, it was only in the first half, but it was enough to win. And when you have a good defense like Vero Beach has, hey, 21's enough to win.
Boy, they played a great game, our defense did. And I mean to tell you, especially when you had to rotate guys in that have played both ways and trying to find that right combination out there. It was fun to watch the game. It was a fun game to call because you really were playing against a team you had a lot of respect for too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you got a lot of respect for Lake Nona. I mean, they've definitely, I mean, look, they came off back-to-back losing seasons. And when I say losing seasons, I mean, it was like 3 wins one year, 4 wins the following year. I mean, they were losing games. So what a turnaround. And Coach Aubrey, congratulations to him for a great season. I know it probably wasn't the way you wanted to end, but you know what? There can only be one winner.
They get to the playoffs.
Yeah.
And they go from losing to back-to-back losing seasons to the playoffs, a district champ.
Yeah.
So you've accomplished 2 out of your 3 or 4 goals that you set yourself up for.
Yeah. It will be a team to be watched for sure as we head into next year. As they've got a taste of it. Now the hunger's there. You believe they'll want to be back again. Speaking of being back again, we go back down to Palm Beach Central, the home of the Broncos. We were there a couple of years ago to take on the Broncos. I believe I was also in round 2, if I'm not mistaken, of the playoffs, the region semifinal. This year, the Broncos are the number 1 seed in our bracket. They earned it with their rankings, their strength of schedule, and their win-loss record. And this is a team, Gary, that will present a challenge, as you would imagine.
Absolutely. And they're very talented. They're good defensively. They're 10-1 with the playoff win. And they have a very good competitive team, the good defense, a good solid offense. There's not a weakness in their game that you see when you look at them on film. They're very athletic and they're very good.
Yeah.
Okay, so that means that, we have a challenge. We got to go on the road. We got to play another district champion team. But you know what, man, this is what it's all about.
Yeah.
These are the games you really look forward to playing because now you're playing a team that's going to be ranked higher than you, and it's going to be favored to beat you.
Yeah.
And so the challenge is there for our defense and our offense to see how well they can adjust and how well they're coming together. Have they played their best game yet? No, I don't think so. I didn't think they played a great first half last week, but the second half they didn't play as well as they did that first half. I want to see them see how they can put the first half together twice. And if they can do that, they got a good chance to beat Palm Beach Central.
Totally agree, GP. As Palm Beach, they faced one of our district foes, Fort Pierce Central, in round 1. They won that ball game 38-0. Just a quick side note: in our region, the top 4 teams in the bracket won their games. So, what does that mean for Vero going forward? Well, it means we won't have a home game. At least not the foreseeable future, because even if we win this game against Palm Beach Central, the winner out of Dr. Phillips and Jupiter will be higher ranked than us, so we would still be on the road. But for the Broncos, they got a great quarterback, Chance Ralston. He's thrown for over 2,000 yards this season, 25 touchdowns, Gary, and he can use his feet as well. He's already accumulated 361 yards on the ground.
When I saw his stat of over 2,000 yards, now I grant you that's in 10 regular season game or 11 regular season game with one
Actually,
player.
the stats right now are just through 10.
10, okay. Yeah. So, and again, our quarterback, who's a freshman, is about 1,700 and something.
Well, after this last game, he's now a little over 1,900 yards.
There you go. So you give him one more game, and he is going to be, he would have been well over 2,000 yards. So we will have a stud quarterback going against a stud quarterback.
Yeah.
2 good quarterbacks, one of them a freshman and one of them a senior.
Actually, Ralston is a junior.
See, I had to guess that because I didn't have his notes in front of me. I was hoping he'd be a senior.
Well, you had a 1 out of 4 shot there.
Yeah, I had 1 out of 4 on that, but I mean, because I don't want to have to face him again, probably.
I know, right? Yeah. Well, and he's got some solid receivers. I mean, he has spread the ball around, Gary, which has been interesting to see. I mean, he's got 4 different receivers that have over 400 yards receiving.
Well, that's spreading it even.
Yeah.
That's spreading it across. That means you've got guys that are working to get themselves open. They got a good offensive line to give your quarterback enough protection to allow him to read the consistency of getting the ball to different receivers. Now, that means you got to look at Vero Beach, and with ours at 1,900 and something, and that means you've got to have, and that's in 9 games. So
Right.
you got to figure that you've got to have 3 or 4 good guys too on your side. That's
Sure.
and we do.
Yeah, obviously it presents, again, it'll be another challenge for our defense. And, I would expect that we'll probably try to make sure that we're shutting down that passing game first and then maybe see what they do on the ground. I don't know.
Well, this will be Bill Motta's biggest challenge as the defensive coordinator. He plays a lot of young kids, just like the offense. I mean, there's very few seniors on that offensive team of ours, and very few seniors on the defense. The seniors on defense are pretty good, though.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's anchored with TJ Alford, and then you got Avion Rivers there at the linebacker spots, Deuce Montgomery there on that front line. And periodically what we're going to see, and what we've seen over the last probably half of the season now, has been guys like Champ Smith and Romeo Vargas also playing on that defensive line as well. What a game last week, though, for Bobby Burbick. I mean, he was disruptive. He was in that backfield. He caused a lot of problems, and we're going to need that same effort from him this Friday.
He's learning how to play the game now. He has been he always, he loves to play tight end. We put him in it tight end. He has a couple catches as a tight end in our scheme, but he's really Coach Bethel has taught him how to be an impactful defensive end, coming off that edge. He's quick. Wait till he gets a little more size in him, a little more, he's tall.
Yeah.
He's got those long arms, and
he's got shades of Matt Bacon. Maybe not the same burst, but he's pretty close.
Wow, and I'll tell you, so you're right. He is good to watch him. Tristan Davis on the other side, who's a sophomore, that has just been unbelievably playing. Now they got him playing some spur at times when they bring in some of the other guys on the offensive side. But again, just the consistency. You got TJ Alford out there and in Rivers, Avion Rivers. Those two guys are your leaders of your defense. I mean, when you're around them and you're playing on that defense, they elevate your game. They make you want to play better. You don't want to make a mistake because those guys are there. They're veterans. They really make you play above and beyond what you're capable of sometimes to play because they bring it out of you. Because you look at them, you watch film on them, and they come busting through there, and they're all excited, jumping up and down when they make a sack or a tackle. And you get it carries on. It's contagious. And as a former player and played in all levels of sports, there's always guys like that make you want to play much better than your game. Because you see, if they're doing it, then why can't I do that? And it makes you want to do that. And to have Bill Motta and Randy Bethel, the two of those guys are just phenomenal at getting their guys fired up to play this game. Yeah,
I agree. So what do you think, Gary? I mean, it's going to be a tough task, as you would expect. I mean, as you get further in the playoffs, it's going to be harder. Yeah, you're on the road. You're not going to have that home crowd. You'll have a good crowd, but you won't have your home crowd. And I think that I like our coach, Lenny Jankowski. I think he's one of the most brilliant high school coaches in the state of Florida. And I like Bill Motta's defense, the way they're playing right now. And even though we're young, we don't have many seniors on both sides of the ball. I still think that Vero Beach is capable of beating Palm Beach Gardens. Palm Beach Central. I'm sorry. I know, Gardens. Right? I know. I'm so used to so many schools down there. Yeah. Palm Beach Central. And again, I liked what I saw, what they were doing, but I also like what I saw, what we're doing. Yeah. And I like the way our defense is playing right now. So I like it. I like Vero Beach to win. All right. Hey, just want to let you know from a broadcasting standpoint, because when we get into the playoffs, that is owned by the media rights are owned by the state, the FHSAA, and we have to apply for those media rights for each and every one of these games. Well, there comes a point where, especially with our video broadcast, where they may or may not allow us to broadcast. Now, they're going to allow us broadcast, but it will not be on our typical YouTube channel. So I'm going to put in the description of this podcast, there'll be a link there that where you can, if you want to watch the game, because it's a part of what is known as the NFHS, which is the organization, if you will, that owns the rights to the video broadcast during the playoffs. So they're going to let us broadcast, but we have to go through their outlets. So I'm just going to remind you now, make sure to make a note about this. Keep that link that it'll be in the description of this podcast. We'll have it posted on our Facebook page. And also, if you go to our YouTube channel, we'll have a link there as well. You will be able to see the game. It's just not going to be through our typical YouTube channel. So just make sure you note that as we head into Friday night's broadcast. All right, well, we're getting set for region semifinal for Region 3. It is Palm Beach Central, Vero Beach on the road this week. Looking forward to it. Hope you can join us down there at Palm Beach Central and cheer on the boys to a win. We're hoping for making it to the Elite 8 or Round 3 of the State Series playoffs. Gary Parrish, Paul Tipton inside the press box. Thanks for joining us. As always, go Indians.
Thanks for joining us inside the press box. For more, go to ChristianFM.com.